I work for the Berkshire Natural Resources Council, and I'll tell you a little bit more about the work that BNRC does, but like Andrea mentioned, I'll kind of dive into the basics of hiking, what to expect when going out for a day hike, and kind of some resources around here that you can look to further your comfort and expand your hiking knowledge in the area. I work with our volunteers at BNRC, and I also do outreach, so a little bit of environmental education. Thank you. So BNRC, we're a land trust. We work throughout and exclusively in Berkshire County to protect land. We turned 50 like 2 years ago now, and our mission throughout 50 years has largely stayed the same, to preserve and protect the natural beauty and ecological integrity of the Berkshires for public benefit and enjoyment. So we see the work we do as very beneficial for people and recreation, but we also want to include wildlife in that mix as well. Great. So we work to protect land in a number of different ways. These are the basic ways, and I'll just touch on them and not go into too much detail. But we acquire land ourselves, and so we own 15,000 acres throughout the county. All of our properties are free and open to the public and open to all non-motorized recreational use, so hiking, biking, hunting, fishing, all that good stuff. Snowshoeing, snowshoe, look for tracks. And we have a little over 55 miles of trail. They're pretty spread out geographically. We don't have a lot of presence in North County, but we do have some properties close to here, the Boulders and the Old Mill Trail. We also work to protect land by partnering with private landowners with what's called a conservation restriction. Every other state in the U.S. calls it an easement, a conservation easement. Massachusetts, it's a restriction. But it's basically a legal agreement with private landowners to permanently conserve parts of their land, and that's about 12,000 acres in the county. We work to protect land with different things like trail easements, so a narrow corridor with a private landowner. Do a lot of public access, like I mentioned, building trails. We do free guided hikes, about 3 to 4 every month, and I'll dive into that a little bit more as well. And we assist many other partners, and many of them are in the room right here, and work with them to really fulfill our mission and the mission of conserving the Berkshires. Thank you. So I did want to touch on the basic essentials for a day hiking checklist. That can be a pretty big barrier for folks in trying to venture or start hiking for the first time. I recognize many of you as seasoned hikers, but this is a nice list to have. And the basic categories for this list are gear. You need to have the proper gear. Tools for navigation so you feel safe and comfortable outside. Clothing is very important, especially this time of year when it could be hypothermic conditions outside and rain, and especially winter time, what to wear on your feet, that sort of thing. Food and water, we need fuel to keep going for sure, and then emergency items in case something were to happen. So for me, and Cosmo, please feel free to jump in if you have anything to add. The essential day hiking checklist, a day backpack, nothing fancy, your average backpack. Doesn't need to hold a lot. We'll talk more about these in a little bit. But within that, I think it's very important to have a map of your area. If you can obtain it online, that's great. A lot of times they're available at the trailhead. Sometimes people will take pictures if there's a map at the trailhead as well. A compass for navigation. Sometimes this is an overwhelming piece to bring to someone, but it's nice to just have it in your backpack. I'll talk about these backpacks more, but there's a little card and you can find it easily online, just basic compass navigation. So if you have a map, you have a compass, you kind of know where you are on a trail, it can be really useful if you feel turned around. Boots, very important, or sturdy footwear, I should say. Depending on the terrain, it's a good idea to sort of know what you're getting yourself into, and there are ways to find that information, but definitely shoes with a back and a pretty good tread. These are not a good example. As you see, my shoes are pretty smooth right here today. These are my gym shoes, but Cosmo is a really good example of nice hiking boots.
I'll hold my shoes up.
Yeah.
You don't have to have big, heavy, clunky for most of the trails in Berkshires. Something like a trail runner like this is just fine.
Absolutely. And depending on the season, especially if it's winter time, it's nice if you have some shoes that stay dry.
These aren't so good for the winter.
Yeah, your feet aren't warm. I will say a trick I have learned throughout the years is putting a plastic bag, just like a grocery bag, over my socks, and it's not the most comfortable, but it does help to keep your feet dry. They usually just get wet from sweat at that point. Water, I like to bring 32 ounces of water, really no matter how long my hike is going to be. I don't know if you have any other input with that.
For a day, yeah, I think that's not unreasonable.
Yep,
You're going to be much more comfortable if you have lots to drink.
That's true.
So it's just a good thing to keep yourself sharp and paying attention and not worried about running out of water.
Yep. And, there are a lot of issues surrounding, we really don't have any springs around here, or what we do. But
I wouldn't drink untreated water unless it were an emergency.
Right, yep. I think that's a safe thing to say. A lot of human development has impacted our waterways, even though actually 40% of the Berkshires, give or take, are conserved, and that doesn't mean the rest 60% is developed, but human impact has pretty much spread throughout the entire county, so just a safe bet. Food, similarly, I think we're all aware, but being sure you have enough snacks to fuel you throughout the day. I like to have extra snacks, because who doesn't like extra snacks? And a first aid kit, and I actually have back there on the table a day hiking checklist that REI puts out, which is pretty handy. It's just front and back, so feel free to grab one of those. What else do I have? Basic first aid kit contents list, so that's pretty handy to have. I think that's all to reference at the moment. And then, once you have the essentials, I kind of like to have a backpack that's just ready to go. It's my hiking backpack. I lead a lot of walks, so it's good to just know I have the first aid kit just in case something goes wrong. But other items that you could put in there to increase your safety and also your comfort and just enhance your experience outside. Knife, multi-tool, moisture wicking layers in wintertime. I think that actually should have gone on the essentials list.
I would say so.
Yep.
And the rainwear.
And the rainwear too. Yeah, pay attention to the weather before you go out. It's always a good idea. Emergency shelter, this is an example of one of those. They're really lightweight and compact, really small. So that's also kind of a fun thing to practice putting up with young ones. A whistle could be helpful, sunscreen, hat, bug spray if it's that season. I actually find that a hat and a bug net around your face when it's black fly or no-see-um, sometimes that helps with no-see-ums and mosquitoes, is really helpful. And those things are very cheap and easy to come by. Flashlight or headlamp also could go in the essentials, but if you're planning a short walk, maybe not an essential thing, but something that I do recommend is interpretive field guides, like bird guides, wildflower guides, really whatever season it is, whatever you're interested in. And I'm sure you can check those out at the library.
Yes.
Plant guide is pretty handy because you're going to see plants.
Yep.
You can't help but see plants.
Yeah.
You might not be able to find the bird, but you're going to want to look at a plant and say, what's that?
We always have
So,
questions about what we're looking at when we're out hiking.
Yeah. Now, I would put the bug spray on the essential side in the Berkshires in the warm weather, just because it's just better than swatting a bunch of mosquitoes all day long. It kind of ruins your day. And I would put the headlamp or flashlight. You can get really small, lightweight little flashlights now. Practically at any convenience store.
Yep.
And just if if you just get turned around and it's getting dark, you've still got this light to help you get out. And I think that's usually a little added peace of mind.
Yeah.
To have that.
Absolutely. Binoculars can be really fun, and then an outdoor journal I find can be really nice to revisit, maybe taking note, having your own phenology journal, like what's happening, when am I seeing the first red-winged blackbird coming back, or the first trillium wildflower blooming. It's kind of fun to revisit that year after year. And something I didn't put on here, but that I'm seeing a lot more on the trail, and this just triggered me, are apps that can help you identify things. Like there's an app called iNaturalist that you basically take a picture and it can populate whatever. It'll give you some ideas of what you're seeing, and then you can say, oh yeah, I think that's what it is, and some fact checkers will take a look and confirm. There's a great birding app called Merlin through the Cornell Cooperative Extension that actually, if you see the bird, it can you can search by what size it was, where you saw it, what color, and then it narrows it down. So it's really fun to do.
Mariah, do you have a favorite of those 3 bird books that are there?
Oh, I really like the Peterson and the Sibley. I'm not a huge birder, but those are 2 that I have at my house.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. All right, Cosmo.
Next.
Thank you.
Whoops.
So,
Oh,
so
this
you'll
is
have to
mul-
click a
mul-
few
this is-
times.
this is
Yeah, sorry.
multimedia.
I was trying
Okay, I'm
the
ready.
animations.
Yep.
So I thought it might be nice just to review some normal trail lingo
Mhm.
or basic trail lingo. This is a picture of our newest trail called Parsons Marsh. It's an accessible trail, so good for all users really. And it's in Lenox near Tanglewood. And this is the trail head. So a lot of times the trailheads you'll find a kiosk, so this nice wooden structure that hopefully has some useful information on it, a map of the property, maybe a little bit of descriptions. We're working right now to update all of our properties to have correct information, and then also trail maps you can take as you're walking with you. And so they're going to look like this and have a nice map that directs you in a little bit of natural history, a little bit about the trail. It tells you how difficult it is, what to expect, how long, that sort of thing. All right. So it's a very dark picture, but your traditional hiking trail, single track, kind of narrow trail, about 3 feet wide. If you don't mind clicking one
Yep.
more time. That is an arrow pointing toward, does anyone know the name of that? Yes.
Blaze.
Blaze, awesome.
Nice.
High five.
Yeah.
Maybe you can come out and help us paint those. That you can paint a nice rectangle. So our policy is the hope is you can see one trail blaze from another. I know we try to find a balance of not overblazing because it can be kind of an eyesore, but it's really useful, especially in wintertime. And I'm sure on the AT it gets even more confusing because
Yes.
the blazes are white
They're white, so it
and
gets
snow
tricky
is
in the
white.
winter.
Yep.
Yeah,
And-
generally, if it's not a very clear path, you'll be able to stand at one blaze, and within a couple of steps, you'll be able to see the next one.
Yep, yep. All right, if you don't mind to do again. This is the tread of the trail. Again, I said this is a single track hiking trail. There are a number of different trail classifications that we have around here. Old woods roads, logging roads, which tend to be wider, maybe more eroded sometimes and slippery. Sometimes they've turned into a stream. And then again, pointed out at the first picture, an accessible trail that's kind of at the other end of a trail classification, but a really an easier grade, which if you'll click again, is pointing to just the steepness of the trail. I think that's it for animation.
Okay.
Awesome.
Nope.
One more. Yeah, I haven't figured that out yet.
Okay.
So I wanted to touch base, or at least inform you all that we do offer 3 to 4 free guided walks. I know that many of you join us on those, but would love to see more faces. We try to offer a variety of experiences and spread geographically throughout the county. This month I think is pretty hike heavy. I have a list of that you can grab too, and you can sign up for our newsletter. We're also all over Facebook. But that's really we're just one organization that offers guided walks, and this can be a really nice way for you to become comfortable with a property and then revisit it on your own if you like, because it can be overwhelming to visit a new place for the first time. I know I'm still adding places to visit around here, forever adding to my list, and it's a good problem to have, but there's also a number of different organizations and everyone has different capacity, and there might be a trail that's not signed as well as another one, so it's just good to maybe add comfort to go with a group. But I listed a couple other options. This is by no means a complete list, but the Mass Audubon properties around here, they offer many guided walks like Pleasant Valley Wildlife Sanctuary and Canoe Meadows. Trustees have a number of properties. Bartholomew's Cobble is a really famous one for the wildflowers right now if you haven't been. Good spot. The Appalachian Trail communities, and I'm sure if you want to speak to more of that, I know there are opportunities coming up because it's the season for the trail users to be coming through, but you probably, in some capacity, offer different kinds of walks throughout the season or
Certainly one
volunteer
on June
opportunities.
2nd.
Yep, yep.
Good intro.
Yeah. And just a number of others. There are also other conservation organizations that offer outings that aren't just hiking. So the Housatonic Valley Association offers free paddle trips on the Housatonic River, which is really fun. Berkshire Environmental Action Team has a tracking club, so wildlife tracking if you're interested in that. They go out, I think, year-round. And there are a ton of meetup hiking groups if you search that online.
And because I'm from Williamstown, the Williamstown Rural Land Foundation has a hike every month or more between now and October.
Yep.
You'd have to go on their website to get the whole list, and they're generally pretty easy hikes. Some of them are a little challenging towards the end of the year, but they go all over Williamstown. It's surprising in a little town like that how many trails there are.
That's true. That's very true. All right. Another thing I wanted to mention is we just launched an app called the BNRC Berkshire Trails app. Hope that's a good face. We haven't had much feedback yet. It's definitely round one of the app. It's got all of our properties on it right now and a number of, a few partners like Mass Audubon and some trustees. We put it out there if others want to contribute to the app. We hope in the future it'll be more of an all-inclusive app with, you know, every trail of Berkshire County ideally, but it's kind of fun. Yeah, Jerry's got it. Ideally, if you have service, you'll be able to, if you have service on the trail, which is, you know, it depends around here. But you can find yourself on the trail, it'll navigate with you where you are, which can add a little bit of comfort. But in general, you can search for what type of hike you want. If you have young kids, there are, you know, hikes for kids around the area, so that sort of thing. Pretty exciting. And again, it's in its infancy. So if you download it, please give us feedback. Yeah, all right. So, really exciting, have a representative from the Berkshire Athenaeum.
Hello. Want me to come up?
Yeah, feel free to come up.
Hi, everybody.
We'll talk about this partnership. So, here, BNRC and the Pittsfield Public Library partnered to create this backpack checking out program. If you want to talk more about it, I can bring out the goodies.
Yeah, for sure. It was started by my predecessor and Mariah. Basically, if you don't have access to a backpack or you're just kind of new and want to try something out, we have backpacks for checkout. So you just need a library card that's in good standing, and you stop by the Pittsfield Public Library, the Berkshire Athenaeum, and they're just there to check out. And each backpack has been kind of put together by both the library and Berkshire Natural Resources Council. And it's got a whole host of stuff in it to make your hiking kind of more successful. So they definitely have these really great binoculars right here that are really nice, pleasant binoculars. Did get already some feedback from somebody, oh, that's right, yourself, that, that the kids really enjoyed that. It really was kind of like one of the more enjoyable parts of the hike for them.
Right, I'll just say that I was planning on taking a couple of young visitors out, and obviously I have gear and I could have just taken them, but I thought it would be fun to see what was in the pack and also for them to have their own pack. And I have to tell you, it was a huge hit. They were 7 and 10, and they were wowed by the binoculars and everything they could see, and just they used everything in the pack.
Oh, that's really exciting.
It's pretty cool to be able to see very far away. If you do spot something like moving in the trees, to be able to like kind of zoom in on it and really kind of see it very close. I like it a lot myself.
Yeah. They're really user-friendly too. Some binoculars, at least for me, are really hard to focus, but these, they're pretty nice. You want to try them?
Yeah.
I don't
Take a
know.
look.
The short distance here right now will do, but we also have some really lightweight field guides. So we've got butterflies and moths, New England birds,
There you go.
wildlife, and then trees and wildflowers. So really, in most seasons, all of which might be relevant. What else?
What else is in there?
Yeah.
A nice first aid kit.
Basic first aid kit, yep. Hiking journal, yeah. It's not essential, but necessary for this activity. And then, what's this? Used one of these before?
That's a magnifying glass.
Yeah. What do you think you might look for in the woods through this magnifying glass?
Tracks.
Tracks, yeah. What kind of mushroom? Never really looked at a mushroom up close.
Or like moss or lichens. You know what lichens are? Those little mossy things that crawl on rocks. They're really interesting.
Sounds fun.
Yep.
All right, let's see, what else? We have a wildlife tracking card for those interested in wildlife. 2 ponchos with every pack, a compass. What else is in here? That's basically it for this one. Yeah,
Cool.
so pretty exciting initiative.
So yeah, we do have a few of them. We have about 5 of them at the library. You kind of come on in. They're just kind of sitting there. You can kind of bring them up to the borrowing desk. The checkout's for a week. You can take them for a week, and they do have to be brought back to the Berkshire Athenaeum. Like a lot of books, like all the books that you see here, you could borrow it and return them in Worcester or Springfield or Berkshire, anywhere. But these ones definitely do have to come back to the Berkshire Athenaeum. Yeah, any questions on that?
What happens if something happens to it, it gets ripped, or you lose a thing?
Yeah, it's just something to talk about, to bring it up with the people at the borrowing desk at the Berkshire Athenaeum, and we'll take it from there. Yeah,
Good question,
yeah,
though.
it's a good question.
Yeah. All right. Oh, bug spray. There's bug spray in here too.
Bug spray.
Which I think brings me to my next slide. Oh.
Yeah.
I know.
It's
A little
okay.
scary. So we all know ticks are here. I always tell folks it's something to very much be aware of, but it should not keep you from being outside. I think the benefits of being outside and spending time in the woods definitely outweigh the risks. I just wanted to really touch base on my experience with ticks around here, and for those of you who are seasoned hikers, please feel free to jump in. I've noticed they're really bad in early spring and early fall.
Pretty busy right now.
Yeah, yep.
It must be hungry
Yeah.
from sure.
And so we have 3 ticks that I know of around here. The tiny little deer ticks at the top left, American dog ticks, which are a little bit bigger, and then the Lone Star ticks, which I think are pretty few and far between. I've heard a few sightings around here, but hopefully they aren't making a larger presence. But I think the deer ticks are really what we have to be worried about in terms of Lyme's disease and other
But they're also
things.
not that big.
Right,
You're not
this is
gonna
not
see
to
them.
scale.
They're little tiny bugs, like that big or smaller.
Yeah.
So they're not gonna, they're not big scary bugs. But they are kind of hard to see, so there's more information about that up there.
Yep, absolutely. Right now, the breeding season is that they're in their nymph form, so the smallest form right now, really in search of food to last them throughout the rest of their lives. But I think that's why we're seeing most of them, because they've hatched, they're around. When it gets a little drier, I think that's when I think they also are returning to a different, they're, I guess, laying eggs again.
They don't seem to be as active when they're
Yeah, which is nice. But I just want to point out that those seem to be the highest population times for ticks, but they're really around year-round. They do well staying under the leaf litter. It doesn't kill them, unfortunately, if we have single-digit degrees or even below 0 degrees. But I have found that in older forests, so forests that haven't been disturbed as much by human presence, I don't see a high number of ticks. Higher elevations, if you're hiking Mount Greylock or the Hoosick Range in North Adams, don't see as many ticks there either. And it also depends on the type of understory, which really kind of plays into the older forest thing. But if you're seeing a lot of dense undergrowth, invasive species like barberry, honeysuckle, that sort of thing, because of their relationship with mice, and therefore other animals as well in those areas, I think that's where you see most of the high concentration of ticks. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Cosmo.
Yeah, I mean, they're for you kids, they drink your blood. They like that. That's what feeds them, like mosquitoes.
I had a tick.
They each
Yeah,
have
so
had
you know
one.
that
Yeah.
already.
I've had one this year already.
They're just not very
Yeah,
clean,
that one was crawling.
clean bugs.
Right.
I don't know, it
Yeah.
might have been in the yard.
But what I like, what I usually do when I'm done working in the woods for the day, I go take a shower,
Yeah.
which is a great way, because they don't
Yeah.
like start feeding on you right away. They crawl around and find the best spot.
Yeah.
So take a shower, and sometime when you get home, and they all wash off and go down the drain. The 1 or 2 that you might have on you. And I like the idea of a lint roller,
Yeah,
Which
I've
is
heard
like a
that from a
sticky-
number of people these
a
days.
sticky thing that you can roll on your clothes, and the bugs will stick to it.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. Other prevention tips I've heard, just wearing like colored clothing.
Like,
Um,
so you can see.
Yeah, yep, exactly. You can see them tuck in, remove all the cracks where they could get in. So I always tuck my pants into my socks. It's really nice to wear light colored socks. Just want to stress that because that's kind of where they start crawling up in your pants too.
Right above the socks.
Yeah, yep. I think staying on trail can be a useful tool as well to prevent ticks getting on you, and just being sure to check regularly, especially if you have animals, which I'm often hiking with my dogs. Lint roller, I've heard this trick a number of times recently.
Yeah.
Haven't tried it out for myself, but it can't hurt to have something sticky that you roll over yourself to try and get those critters. As far as kind of more intense things to prevent, there are general insect repellents that have DEET in it have proven to be pretty helpful. I'm always hesitant because I'm checking myself anyway, but also they found that the oil of lemon eucalyptus actually proved to be pretty helpful, and then
Picaridin,
which I hadn't heard of, but apparently is also pretty helpful. And that's something you can spray on your clothing. Another commonly used method is permethrin, which is actually an insecticide, but I've heard a lot of people, have you seen gators? They're kind of an addition over, I don't know how best to describe them,
Yeah,
but
it's
you
kind of
put
like
them
a
around
big
your
tall
shin.
sock without a foot in it.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of folks treating those with permethrin because they're not coming in contact with their skin, so it can be a little bit more helpful. I think they've shown it to have a pretty
Yeah,
bad impact on
The
cats. so-
permethrin, you spray on your clothes and let it dry,
Yep.
and it'll last for maybe 6 washings. And I do that all the time with all my outdoor pants. I just spray my pants every 6 weeks. Spray it on there, let them hang, and they dry, and the bugs, they don't go on it.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Where do you buy that?
Walmart, anywhere. It's there's a couple of, it just comes in a mister bottle, basically. You can do, I don't know, 3 or 4 pairs of pants with, like 8-ounce bottle. And once it's dry, it's safe. You don't want the liquid to be around your cat because it makes cats sick. But other than that, once it's dry, it's considered to be safe for humans. Veterinarians use it a lot on horses and things like that in its liquid form, but it's not regulated for humans. But I found it very effective for that first line of defense, the lower half. They get on that and then they sense it and they just drop off. It's pretty cool, actually.
The other thing I read too recently was that if you're on the trail and you want to sit and have something to eat or whatever, is to, if you're going to sit on a log or something, put something over it.
Yep.
So, whatever you have.
Your raincoat.
A raincoat or
Something.
a tarp or something, just put that over the log or the rock or whatever. Don't sit directly on it.
You can get a little towel that you spray with the permethrin and let it dry. That keeps them away. So that's another way to go. I also spray my backpack because when I'm working on the Appalachian Trail, I usually take it off and put it on the ground. So I don't want to pick up any ticks on that, so I just do the same thing with my backpack. So it seems to be pretty effective, and even regular bug repellent that you would use for mosquitoes will also work for these things. It just is smellier and greasier. No, I don't like it very much.
Yep.
It works just fine.
Yeah. Work you there. Something I learned about recently, it's a little pricey, but UMass Amherst is actually doing a tick testing program. So if you do get bit and you think it had been in for a while, overnight or something, long enough for Lyme's disease to get you, you can mail your tick, and there are directions online. It costs $50, but they'll do a test, and you can pay more for a more in-depth test, but they say they will get back to you in 72 hours. So it's kind of a good reassurance if you're worried about that. All right.
Do all ticks have Lyme disease?
No,
That's
no.
a thing, right?
Depends on the actual tick.
Like a deer tick.
Or deer tick does. Some of it, sometimes they do and sometimes they don't.
And
And
they're never born with it.
yeah, they get it from their hosts.
Yep, they get it from their host, and that's usually, is it the white-footed mouse?
Mouse or deer.
A mouse or
I
deer
don't
around
remember
here.
what the order is that happens.
Yeah.
And they have to be embedded in you
Summer deer, winter
for-
mice.
like 24 hours because the exchange of their germs with your blood is very slow. So if you get them off, even if they've been embedded, if they've started to bite into you, which you can't feel, they anesthetize your skin so you can't feel them digging in. If you get them off within 24 hours, generally you're considered to be safe, and use a pair of pliers,
But even if you
or
don't.
tweezers, pliers,
Pliers.
tweezers.
Pliers.
If it's big.
There's a
Blowtorch.
tick, I have this problem, and someone else who's been bitten this year has a problem. Even after you get the tick off, if you've nudged it, you know, if you haven't done a clean,
Yes,
if you've nudged it, it has a chance to jettison,
yes.
and the red spot
Mhm.
lasts
Yep.
quite a while, and it's very
Yeah,
irritating.
Some people are sensitive differently to it.
Yeah.
My wife, any kind of bug bite, and she's got a red welt like that for like 3 weeks. And that doesn't last as long on my body at this point. If you want to get your little tweezers right in there behind the
Yeah.
head and just slowly increase
But
tension.
you gotta, yeah,
it'll
see,
come out.
if you don't know what it is, and you nudge it,
Yeah, if you like looking at it, that's a whole other
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
I've actually seen a tick that's filled up,
Yeah,
fell
yeah.
off.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, when they're
Whoa.
all, when they're all full, they'll drop
Whoa.
off.
Oh, God.
There are these little plastic
It's
tick
not that-
remover things.
It's not as scary as it sounds.
Make
Oh,
it
yeah.
easier.
Well,
What happens if you pull the tick and the head stays in?
Well, if you can't get it out with the tweezers, I would go to the health, the walk-in health place and say, can you get this tick out? Because sometimes you can't reach it if it's in a place where you can't get it. So it's not, they'll be able to pop it out of there right away. There's not, hundreds of people are not coming down with Lyme disease in the Berkshires. Some are, but it's not like an epidemic. You just have to be smart about where you go and cleaning up when you get off the trail.
Yeah, I think your comment about taking a shower afterward is pretty apt.
Yeah. But in 12 hours maybe.
Yep.
I usually,
I think an app, and if you have service, you can use it. Technology on the trail is really tricky, but you can download the app. There are directions at the trailhead now. You hover your phone over and it pops up an augmented reality video that talks about the mill history, which is really cool,
Whoa.
and also the natural history of the property. But if you don't have service, we do have a hard copy interpretive brochure now that you can, I know it was a long time coming. Yep, but we do have a trail map back there for you. Yeah.
We do geocaching and we found
that's so
one
cool.
under the bridge on Owen Trail.
The big bridge.
You're not
that
supposed
goes-
to give it away.
Don't have her yet,
Alright.
That's awesome.
there are 40 other ones out there.
Nice. There are a bunch of the boulders too.
That's a great way to kind of
Yeah, it's hidden
have
pretty
something
good
to do as well.
All right. Any other questions? Oh, I also wanted to just point out we have our take a hike guide over there. The points you travel top of the property. So, all right.
Okay, my turn?
Yeah. Do you want me to run?
Yeah, I think it's fine. I'm not a good Windows person. Yeah. I wanted to add a couple of things to the list of stuff to bring that can be handy. Well, the first thing we always do when we go out on the AT is we let somebody know where we're going and when we are expected to be back. So if you don't get back on time, you might be in trouble, you might have fallen down or something or gotten lost, they can call for help and they know where you started. And so when people go to look for you, they can find you more easily. So we always make our volunteers do that. We call it check in and check out. So that's always a good plan. I would also suggest bringing a large trash bag, which is a waterproof thing you can put over yourself or over your gear if it starts raining and you keep from getting real wet. Just a big, 50-gallon garbage bag. You probably got them in the house. And then a small bag for picking up any litter that you might see. Put it in there and haul it out. So what I'd like to talk about on this half of the thing is about something called Leave No Trace. Now, Leave No Trace is abbreviated LNT, and there's actually a business called Leave No Trace, or LNT, that provides trained educators to train anybody who wants to, but typically it's aimed at like trail managers and group leaders and things like that, but individuals could take it. You can go online and learn about it. It doesn't really mean leave no trace like some ninja that's kind of going through the woods and not leaving any footprints. It's about not impacting the environment that you're in more than necessary or affecting other people's experiences who are also sharing that place with you. So, I mean, all of us know about, picking up after ourselves or leaving the place better than you found it, or take only photographs, leave only footprints, those kinds of things. It's all very much the same thing. It's about keeping that resource as much in its natural state as possible. They've broken it down into these categories, and I probably don't have the videos in the right order, but we'll start with what's at the top. So let's just play this quick little video here. These are all available online, and this is a series called "Don't Be That Guy." I think you have to push the away, but no, you don't. Okay. Now, this is kind of a fun little video.
How many folks are staying here tonight?
Just me tonight. Got somewhere in, like, well, I've been drying out my stuff, but there's some more space down by the river.
Right. We've got some time. We could push on to the next campsite. It's about a mile.
Let's do that.
Oh, yeah. We got 3 of them.
That's more.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
Do you want me to pause it?
Yeah, Mom.
Hold on.
It's good to hear you
Is
too.
this going on a
I
plane?
know, it's the first time I've got service.
Well,
5
we'll
bars
propose it,
in
because this is
like
in the
3
same thing.
weeks. Oh my God. Yeah, isn't this great out here? Yeah, I know. It's way, way more beautiful than I thought it would be. I know. Here, hold on. Let me flip it real quick. Isn't that great?
So be considerate of other visitors. You can pause if it won't. You can stop it and go back to the finder again. So that's about not dominating the environment with your presence. It's just blending in with with the outdoor experience and being, not in the way of everybody else, so everybody can share in what you're enjoying. The other couple of things is to think about if you're going to use your phone, to not use it right there on the trail. You don't want to have a conversation with somebody else, talking into the phone while everybody else is trying to appreciate the trail. And if you're bringing your dog with you, have a leash ready. In some places, you're required to have your dog on a leash. It depends on the property manager. If the dog decides to go to the bathroom, you should pick that stuff up, or at the very least, bury it out in the woods, and we'll get back to that a little bit later. And keep the dog out of shelters and away from campsites, because not everybody likes a dog. They don't know your dog. They don't know your dog is perfect and friendly. They might be frightened of it, or
It might be tick infested.
it might be, probably could be tick infested. But, and you can, dogs generally don't stay on the trail. They go into the woods and get all muddy, and you don't want them jumping on everybody else's gear with their muddy feet. So just, think about that kind of consideration. Well, let's see what's next. Let's dispose of waste properly. This is always fun. Let's have a little conversation about that. Yeah, part one is a little more backpacker oriented. Just like 5 minutes. So you can pause that for a sec there. So this is, why do you think we don't want to just pour it out right by the campsite? So why are those guys picking up those little pieces of oatmeal and just leave them there? It's not very big. Lice, mostly. You want to not attract animals to the place where you're trying to do your own business. You don't want them climbing around on you or anything like that. And all of this stuff has some kind of food in it, and so it'll attract animals. And in terms of toothpaste, it's not very attractive to see big gobs of white toothpaste. And of course, if you have to pee in the woods, you want to be away from other people to keep the smell manageable. Okay, I think that's that one. Let's see what's next on our list. Yep. So, leave what you find, part 1.
Great.
This is a big one for us day helpers.
Oh, yes.
Those are mountain laurels, they'll be in bloom in a month.
What are you doing? Oh, hey, I'm just picking some flowers. Well, for you, actually.
But flowers die, and then no one else can enjoy them. You know what lasts forever? Pull your phone.
Huh. Good idea.
I think we all probably know that.
Did he just meet her on the trail? Yeah. He was trying to pick her up?
Maybe. But he doesn't stand a chance.
Yeah.
I don't think. Let's see the next guy.
Hey. All right. That works. Don't be that guy.
Hey, guy. Put your mark here, not there.
That guy.
We have a great deal of difficulty keeping people from marking up shellfish. There are some that are pretty incredible. It's, for some reason, people seem to think it's a great idea, but it's not. Because what it does is it takes away from the naturalness of the environment, right? Suddenly you're reading everybody's stuff flashing on the ceiling over your head while you're trying to have a nice experience outdoors. Not so much fun. Let's do plan ahead and prepare, because we talked a little bit about that already today. That's this guy right there. Yep.
Pack a little?
Pretty much got everything.
So you got your rain gear and warm clothes?
I didn't really think it would rain that much.
What about your stove?
I'm planning on using a fire to cook my food.
Well, you at least have your guidebook and your map, right?
No, I'm planning on following the white blazes along the trail. Don't be that guy. Where's the next water? Oh. Should be point 2. It's just up there. Oh.
This is pretty much off of our list we talked about at the beginning. And I think we have, let me just make sure I've got all those things. We talked about, we got one more here. Traveling and camping on durable surfaces. This is also fairly important stuff. A lot of us have these hiking poles, and having a rubber cap on the end leaves much less of a hole in the side of the trail. You'll see them out here along the 3 feet of Dalton in a couple more weeks. Different hikers have their picture. This is very important. Not to step on plants, stay in the middle of the trail, and walk through the mud. If you can pause that, but particularly now, the trails are very wet and muddy, and if you go around the mud, you keep making the trail wider and wider and wider. The mud doesn't ever go away. It'll the muddy part gets bigger and bigger because you're just flattening the trail out. So you should just walk through it. This is the one chance you have to, you're allowed to get mud in your shoes. So we much prefer folks to just suck it up, as it were, and just walk straight through the mud and get it on yourself and then clean up when you get home. We can continue this. This is more about tenting, but it's okay.
Right.
It's a fun activity. And in Massachusetts, on the AT, we have campsites about every 7 miles that are where you're supposed to camp because the impacts have already happened in those sites. So instead of people just carving their own campsites wherever along the trail, we want to make sure that those impacts to the environment are concentrated so that you're not hiking through essentially a campground wherever you go.
I think just a quick question. I've always wondered, how does that work if you've got a bunch of people kind of coming through the Appalachian Trail, and there's a limited amount of campsites? Do they register them, or
No.
they share them?
No, yeah, they kind of share them.
Okay.
It's free and open to anyone, so we can't, and also the idea of the AT is kind of being this open thing for everybody to enjoy. We don't want to put limits on that. People learn to get to a site early or be able to hike on to the next site. There usually is always a way to squeeze somebody else in. Some of our shelters are designed to sleep 10, but you can probably get 20 in there on a really rainy day. You make a whole lot of new friends in that area. So yeah, it's at some point, I think the use is going to increase to the level where we really have to start addressing it. Some sites are pretty compact and hard to expand, and we don't want to make them infinitely larger and larger and larger. So we're starting to count the number of hikers that go to each of these sites to try to establish a threshold where we should consider making it bigger or making another one further in the woods. We don't know how we're going to answer that question yet. We have to gather some data. We expanded the K-Wood site up here recently with 4 more new tent spots. They're in the same zone, so we didn't make it bigger. We just flattened out the dirt so you could put your tent up. Where it used to be a hill, we just made a little shelf to put your tent up. So again, we're trying to keep it as small as possible. Questions? So those are kind of I don't know if you counted them, but there are 7 of those principles. One of the ones we didn't talk about was respecting wildlife, which means when you see something in the woods, don't immediately rush over to it. Keep your distance, let them live their lives the way they want to live their lives. Obviously things like bears and things like that, you wouldn't want to go and be too friendly to, but you can look at them from a distance. They knew you were coming along before you saw them. If they wanted to hide, they would go away. You're going to see little amphibians on the trail. Leave them alone, don't pick them up. You might see some snakes, don't chase them into the woods. Just let the animals do what they're going to do. And just let them do their thing, and you get to observe them doing that. And picking up your food and putting it away in a safe place is also important to keep the animals from getting used to eating food from humans. Because they're pretty much good at roving around the woods and picking up their own food. But if you provide food in a location, they'll come back to that location and look for more food. Not a big problem with a mouse, you can survive that. But the bears, once they learn that they can get food at a campsite, they'll come back to the campsite. They're not interested in people, they're interested in the food that people bring. So we try to avoid, and that alters the bear's natural way of living in the woods. So we want to make sure that they don't get used to having lots of people food. And probably in Dalton, there are probably bears in people's backyards in Dalton, probably raiding trash cans and bird feeders. But we want to keep the woods as natural as we can do. And that means making the food inaccessible to those animals. At all of our campsites, we have steel boxes Not very attractive, but put the food in there and latch it and the bear can't get into the food. And they learn pretty quick. Yeah, it smells great there, but they can't get in, so they go off and find food that they know how to deal with. So that's been pretty helpful. We talked, there was a little bit about waste disposal. When you have to go to the bathroom, at all of our campsites, there's an outhouse. And there, some of them are decompose the waste. There's instructions on the door about what to do. Others, we just bury the waste in a hole in the ground. Depends on the intensity of use at that campsite. Very busy sites, we want to decompose that waste and turn it into compost. The less busy sites, we just bury it, and it very slowly decomposes. If you're away from a pretty and you need to make number two, dig a small hole in the ground and do your business and cover it up. And that was what that trowel was for, that we saw in one of the early ones. And I have some brochures here that I was too lazy to fold them, but they're basically a trifold about leaving no trace on the AT. And it has a little picture of how to do all of these things. And I'll just pass them around and you can keep them and stick them on your refrigerator for your next hike. So I'll just hand these out and you guys can pass them along and take one. The only other thing I would add is that everybody went on their first hike at some time. So if you haven't been out on the trail and you're worried about going for a hike, don't be worried, just take a small one to get used to it. You don't have to hike from Dalton to Cheshire, which is 10 miles, as your first hike. You can do a little, a couple hours in the boulders down here in Dalton, just to get used to being out in the woods. The more you're out in the woods, the kind of more comfortable you're going to get with that experience. So I would not hesitate to go just because you haven't been yet. And I think that's all I have. Anything else we should cover?
So thank you, Cosmo.
Guys got questions? AT questions, trail questions, pooping in the woods questions?
I just have another quick question.
Yeah.
Poles, people bring poles, they're really popular these days. Can
Yeah.
you talk about why people need poles?
It's easier to balance, especially if you have a big heavy backpack on, you're kind of top heavy already.
Okay.
It takes some load off your knees.
Parts of the trail are pretty rocky.
Parts of the trail, it's
Parts-
easy to lose your balance.
Did you say the poles should have the rubber things on them?
I
Or
prefer
should
them.
not?
They should.
Okay.
In
The-
a particular season, or?
Well,
I've never heard that before.
In the winter, I take my little rubber tips off because I want that metal, there's a little metal spike on the end that doesn't really dig into the rock, but it'll scratch the rock, and the narrow tip makes a pretty good sized hole in the side of the trail. And so if you have 600 through hikers coming through, all with their poles, on the same uphill stretch where they're putting it in, you'll just see a whole little perforations on the edge of the trail, and that erodes very quickly. So we want people to put the rubber tips on, but most through hikers don't. They just don't. But through hikers there's an estimated on the AT of 3 to 4 million people a year use the AT. Of that, 3,000 or so people start as through hikers, and maybe 600 make it to the other end in a single season. So through hikers are really actually a very small percentage of the total number of hikers on the AT. You see them coming through Dalton from, in July. It seems like a lot of hikers, but there are a lot of other people out there all year round doing day hikes, just going out in the woods for a couple hours and coming back. So the actually the kind of day use or even the short kind of 2 or 3 night overnight hikes are much more common than a 2,000-miler hiking from end to end, or a long distance hiker of any kind. Use does have impacts. And so the more people are out there, the greater the impacts, which is why we want to try to remind folks about this leave no trace idea, which is to minimize those impacts.
Cosmo, you also speak to people that have intentions leaving food or water at trailheads for hikers.
Yeah.
And
That's been known as trail magic. From our perspective, which is the AT managers, it's trash. It's abandoned property. If no one's there, passing it out or having a conversation with a hiker, and just like taking a cooler full of food and plopping it down the trail and says free for hikers. Basically, the hikers will appreciate that, but the bears will like it a whole lot more. And they will just come in and chew it up, or the raccoons or the mice or whatever. So if you want to help a hiker, the best thing you can do is meet them on the street or on the trail and offer them a ride someplace. Take them down to Stop and Shop and restock their groceries, or if you really are brave, you can invite them into your house to take a shower. Just don't put your best towels out for that. You can take them down to the CRA, they can get a shower down there. But that kind of human-to-human contact hikers remember that. They don't remember finding a cooler in the woods with some water in it. They remember talking to people and having a conversation and learning about the place they're in. So that's the highest kind of trail magic, is to have that one-on-one conversation with a hiker, or to help a hiker who looks off the trail and it's 90 degrees in his August and they're like this, and you hand them a nice cold bottle of water and they're eternally grateful for that. Maybe not eternally, but they're very grateful. And it's always nice to have a conversation. Hikers come from all over the United States, many foreign countries. It's just great to hear their stories, and they really appreciate the human contact. So that's really kind of the more important thing. Some people will leave food in the shelters for hikers, thinking that they're all starving to death and this food is going to save them. Usually it again attracts mice and stuff like that. So you guys have recently adopted the Kaywood shelter.
Yeah, Kaywood,
So
yeah.
their job will be to go take that food out and either donate it or throw it away. It's still not sealed. And of course trash, they will be picking up people's trash. So trying to keep it as looking as natural as possible while being this place in the woods.
Have you hiked the trail?
Not the whole thing. Nope, I'm too bored. I couldn't get up and hike every day for 6 months. I'm just, I'm good for about 10 days and then I'm ready to go back and do something else. So